Hey guys, what's going on? Tyrauku here. I hope you're all doing great. So today I want to talk about the brand new champion that I pulled during the last 10x. The previous 10x's have actually been pretty lucky for me. I know we have a 2x Sacred Shard event coming up this weekend, so let me know down below if you guys are going to be pulling for that. Hopefully if you do, you get some good champions. But during the 10x event that had Kymar, Lysandra, and Lanicus, I did end up getting lucky enough to get Kymar. Now, when initially I was pulling, I'm always hoping that I get Trunda, okay? Because Trunda's a champion who I would love to have. But honestly, Kymar has more than surpassed what I thought he was going to do for my account. He's actually found his way in basically every area of the game for me. And the point I'm at in the game, it's kind of difficult to have a champion who you pull who can fill a role everywhere for you. So Kymar, an incredible champion. And a lot of these areas, Kymar is amazing. But to be honest, if you don't have him, you can swap in Renegade to do kind of the similar things. Now, with my Kymar build, I know a lot of people people who do have multiple Kymars build them differently for different areas of the game. My Kymar, my main focus, and if you've been watching the channel for a little while, you may know, my main focus lately has been trying to move up in the arena and pushing higher levels of the arena. With that said, Kymar is an amazing arena champion, and I really wanted to fit him in there. First off, when I very first pulled Kymar, I threw him in the arena. I had him with Arbiter, Siphi, and then Kymar, and then a nuke champion. It didn't work out great. It wasn't terrible, but after a few days of playing him, like I haven't had him for that long, but after a few days of playing him, I ended up going with this team. Now, this was not the initial iteration. That first I had this team instead of Siphi. I had Arbiter, Kymar, Madam, and Ray. Well, I was watching some Wantrans videos, I do believe, and I seen that he was using this team to push high levels of Platinum Arena. I've seen some of Mac Chan's videos, which I'll leave their links down below if you guys want to check them out. Great arena content creators. But I've seen them both talking about this team, and I was like, I haven't really used Solus. I know he has crazy damage. I've seen it before, but after realizing I could slow him down, I decided to go with this team. Now, mine is built a little bit differently. I'll go ahead and show you guys how this works, but you may notice that some of the other Kymars they're built a little bit differently, and I'll show you guys how mine's built and how I kind of went through this and kind of making it make sense for my account because my gear levels are a little bit different. And the big issue I was having for a little while was that if my Solus, I want to show you guys something that's not very pleasant, okay? I'll go ahead and tell you. He has 92% crit rate, all right? The cat's out of the bag. 92% crit rate, okay? That's terrible. I mean, it's actually not terrible. I mean, especially with Kymar's reset, it's not awful. I can kind of justify it like that. But if I want to get him to 100% crit rate, it slows him down quite a bit. If my Kymar was a lot faster, then what I would be able to do is have Kymar use his A2 ability, the stun, the very first, and then go through, and then maybe use his A1 ability, and then Solus would take his turn, and then Kymar could reset, and then Solus would get another A3. Currently, my Kymar is not very fast, so what happens is, if I drop Solus's speed, even 10 points, I believe, then what happens is, Kymar does his A2 ability very first, comes back around, Kymar then resets, or uses his A1 or his A3, doesn't really matter what, and then Solus goes right after Kymar. So Kymar is basically waking up all the enemies or resetting your skills, and then Solus is taking a turn. So it just works out a lot better for me to have Solus be a little bit faster until the point where I can get Kymar to be much faster. So maybe he could take 2 turns before Solus does his 1. Just because I want to have 2 of those AoE abilities from Kymar or from Solus hitting the enemy. So like Kymar just now reset. I think he did. He should have. If he didn't, then I'll have to do that. But comes back around. If Kymar would have reset, I guess I used his A1 maybe. Maybe I clicked his A3 and didn't process or whatever. I've been having some issues with that lately. I'll click the abilities and then it won't actually highlight the correct one. I don't pay attention and accidentally use it. But either way, Kymar should have reset and then Solus would have his AoE ability ready to go again, which has worked out really well for me. If you have Kymar, maybe you followed all that just now. If you're having some issues with him, maybe that helps you out. So that's my arena team. Now when it comes to my dungeon teams, and I'll show you my Kymar build right now actually to make the most sense. Let's go ahead and jump in here and you can see this. My Kymar, currently I have him just fast and accurate, all right? So I know a few people are wondering how his build looks. Fast, accurate, and his A1 ability does place poisons if this attack is critical. I'm not that worried about his crit rate. Like, if I could get it to 100%, maybe, but all the dungeons I'm using him in, he has plenty of people on the team to apply poisons for him, so it's no problem whatsoever. I don't need more poisons necessarily, and there are some benefits to not having crits happening in the arena, especially from Kymar's A2 ability, because champions like Seeker, masteries such as this one right here, whenever a has 50% chance of increasing the turn meter by 15% when an ally is attacked with a critical hit. So if I'm using Kymar's A2 ability and he's critting, it could be increasing an enemy's turn meter. I don't really want that happening. So I went ahead and opted to not have any crit rate on him. The Seeker thing is not a huge deal because if Kymar crits a Seeker, if the Seeker is in the lead position, what happens is Kymar crits him, the increased defense applies, and then Kymar strips it. So that's perfectly fine. But the turn meter boost I don't really love, so I don't have the crit cap on him. But if you're not using him in the arena, if you're only using him in dungeons, then crit capping him may make sense because you can apply more poisons, and more poisons, more damage, typically better in the long run, right? Now, a lot of the dungeons, like I mentioned before, Renegade is a pretty good substitute for Kymar. Instead of having a resets the cooldown ability, she has reduced the cooldown by 2 turns, I believe, which for a lot of champions gets them pretty close to having it just completely refresh. So it's definitely very nice, and it works out very, very similar in a lot of areas. So obviously it depends on your champions. If they have extremely long cooldowns, it may not work great. Now for his masteries, this is another thing talking about his speed tune. I am not going this because I don't want him taking any more damage. I have no masteries down here at the bottom. I don't want this because what happened is sometimes the enemies would wake up and sometimes they take a turn. And if a speed booster or something like that takes a turn and they end up attacking Kymar or whatever may happen and somebody crits, if Kymar's speed, back to how Solus gets cut in and makes the speed tune wonky, if Kymar's speed gets boosted too much, he cuts right in on Solus and it just kind of messes up my run. This, I don't want him counterattacking because the same thing, if it procs the enemy's Cycle of Revenge, it can mess things up, it can wake people up from the sleep. So in all, this Retribution doesn't bring enough benefit for me to actually want to keep it. I mean, yeah, having an A1 ability that does damage could be good. He doesn't hit it hard enough for it to make sense really, and it has more bad than good even available. And then these two down here, this doesn't really matter. I mean, I guess I could take this if I really wanted. He does have poisons, but he's not really going to place them. And then the speed one, I really don't want any allies to die, and this could mess up my speed tunes in dungeons, possibly, depending on how the run is working. But this is my current setup for him. If you guys want to check it out, feel free. If you want to run this, go ahead and try it. But this is how I use him in the dungeons. And like I said, his build, just speed, accuracy, and sometimes I manipulate his HP a little bit if I run him with Necrit, whether I want him to take the immunity buff from Necrit or if I want somebody else to do it. I'll just change a banner, or not change a banner, I'll change a necklace or a ring. The biggest piece of gear that I need to upgrade is this. This looks great for Umbral Enchantress. For Kymar, not so much. We have 9 speed on here. Decent, I mean, good, great defense for sure, but everything else is kind of mediocre. Now, if you see any champions in this video that you want me to do a review, recap, talk about, let me know. I'll definitely do that, but right now, just focus on Kymar. So Dragon's Lair, like I was mentioned, this is kind of crazy how one new champion, especially as late as I am in the game, can fit in so many different areas for me. So against the Dragon, I'm running Martyr, Bad El, Kymar, Seer, and Lydia. I'll go ahead and click on these champions just so you can see their stats in case you're wanting to run the similar team. So my Martyr, I use her currently in the clan boss with my Turvold, 2 Man-Eaters, Martyr, and Kreela team. So that's why her speed's kind of low. It actually works out very, very well though for how it's ordered, and you'll see that in a little while. Bad El, he's still going through a lot of gear iterations, still a lot of changes for him, but this is kind of what he's looking at right now. Kymar, you've already seen his stats. I don't know why I accidentally just kicked him out of the dungeon. Lydia is this. I need to change the presets for this dungeon as well, apparently, because I don't have it set as a team. And then Seer are these stats. Now, her crit damage and everything like that could be better. The main thing is I just want to make sure she goes after Lydia places her decreased defense and weaken, and after Bad El, especially with the Whirlwind of Death, because I do have Whirlwind of Death mastery on Seer. That's a little bit of speed tuning information. Now, when it comes to these dungeons, I don't think I have this preset. So this is my Fire Knight team. I guess I could name these to make it a little bit easier, right? Well, I don't have it named, so let me see. The only thing that really matters here is Kymar using his A2 in the first wave. So like I mentioned before, a lot of people, well, I didn't touch on this too much, but a lot of people run Kymar the slowest in their dungeons, because what happens then, if he's the slowest, he'll go very last, reset everybody's cooldowns. For me, I can't actually do that. Now, that's not going to work out great here. Because of that, we didn't kill this person in one hit, and it's going to mess up the abilities a little bit. But I run him to go very first because I'm using him in the arena. He's built fast, so he's going to be faster than all my dungeon champions. So what happens here instead is I have him set from the AI changes, which is amazing. I have him set to use the A2 very first each time. All right. So he's set to use that as an opener. And then on the second wave, what he'll do is he'll use his A3 ability the very first time, and then he'll reset everybody's cooldowns, allowing him to just move through everything. I think it actually saves a little bit of time, especially if everything works out good, because on that second wave, I don't have to let everybody run through their setup and then go through it again. So it's just nuke setup first wave, Kymar resets, nuke setup done. Okay, instead of nuke setup, Kymar reset. If depending on, I guess, how the first wave goes. If the first wave has one enemy survive, then it's fine. If everybody dies, second wave, a few more animations. I think this may be a little bit quicker, but let me know if you've tried it different ways. Let me know what you think. Now, the same thing could be done with Renegade. She could be set to be the fastest or the slowest. It doesn't really matter as long as she's resetting the cooldowns and not going in between any champions and messing things up, making things weird like that. So this is how I have him built. I've just tested it out, made him work with where I have him. I don't want to change his gear for different areas of the game, and he works very well. So having this Dragon Run, Martyr does pretty good. I mean, yeah, Seer removes the buffs, kind of makes Martyr a little less useful, and honestly, we don't have anybody here who has amazing A1 abilities. So everybody's just doing kind of mediocre damage at best. Is this team the fastest Dragon 20? Not at all. Is this team a fast enough Dragon 20? Yeah, but it could be definitely sped up. I could make some improvements to this to speed it up, but currently, I think it runs about 2 minutes, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I haven't tested it enough to see how fast it actually is consistently, but it's fast enough to make sense, all right? And this is stage 25. I like this team. I think it's a pretty solid team. Seem to be 100% consistent so far with what I've tested it. I think 2 minutes and 30 seconds is only high end of things. The person who runs this same build as me, they actually said their run's about 1:15 to about 2 minutes. So maybe I can cut some time off this with Bad L being changed. Bad L is not really built for this at all. I kind of just threw some gear on him and let him run. So I may change him, see how it works, but everything else looks good. And also we had a little bit of a clunky run with those first two waves. Now, I also use Kymar in Fire Knight. So this area is the main area where I believe Kymar is possibly surpassed by Renegade, because Renegade does have some abilities that give her benefits against the Fire Knight, such as, I'm gonna go ahead and down here and find her. She is lurking right here. Okay, so she has the potential to land a slow on her A2 ability, and it hits 3 times. So I think she kind of outweighs Kymar. If you have her, she can work in this team perfectly fine. I'll show you the stats of Allure and Farrakhan. Now, Allure being brought in by Farrakhan each time, she can be a little bit slower. I've heard this team, you want to have like closer to 290 speed, a little bit on the higher end, but that's with Krila. If you have Farrakhan, you can run a little bit slower because every time he does his ally attack, he brings in all allies versus Krila, who she only brings in a few of them, and it can skip Allure sometimes. So you have Allure taking her turns using her A1, and then Farrakhan bringing her in as well. Everything else the same. The team setup, this is how the prioritizations are going. So Seer, this is what she's looking like. Prince Kymar, this is what I was talking about of having that as an opener. Lydia, I have this set. She usually does that all the time anyways. I just don't take any chances of being inconsistent. Allure, with Allure, you don't have to turn off these two abilities, but if she's the speed where mine's at, I do think it's safer, because what happens is she'll use this A1 ability all the time on a Fire Knight, unless the Fire Knight's turn meter is below 10%, I believe. If it's below 10%, she'll start using this, I think, Hellish Blaze, and it can throw you off depending on how fast you are. If you're fast enough, you can keep these on, it's no problem, but in all honesty, if she has Giant Slayer, this is probably just a better ability anyways. And then Farrakhan, I don't have anything turned off on him. He uses his A3 first. He brings that extra buff for Seer, which allows Seer to, most of the time, nuke these waves pretty consistently. So we'll see how this works out. But sometimes if the decreased defense, the weekend from Lydia is not placed, it could get a little bit clunky on these runs, but this one should be perfectly fine. We have the decreased defense and weekend land on everybody here. So we one-shot the wave. Kymar instantly resets. We just go through one rotation of everybody, which is kind of what I mentioned before. Very, very nice. If the animations were a little bit fine-tuned, maybe I could change up some stuff. We get to the boss in about 25 seconds, a little bit less. I don't know, 25 seconds to the boss is definitely very solid. If I could get Seer to do more damage with fewer, I guess, champions going before her, that would be ideal. But the way it stands right now, this is what I need for my Seer to do the damage. Now, you'll notice I do have a shield set. The shield set is on Farrakhan because he doesn't really have any other major role other than bring in the shields, bringing buffs, so it works perfectly on him. You also notice that Lydia, earlier, she did have an immunity set. That one extra buff actually brings a lot more than you would think. Having that one extra buff allows for Seer to have, well, one extra buff when removing all the buffs and dealing damage. So it works out very well. And before I had that immunity set on Lydia, it seemed a little bit more inconsistent. It wasn't bad, but there were some times where the waves wouldn't die as easily. Now, if I got my Seer to do closer to like 270, 280, maybe even 300% crit damage, that could be better. Maybe I could test Flawless Execution versus Helm Smasher. Maybe it'll speed some of this stuff up, but that's getting on a side tangent there, talking about things other than Kymar. Kymar is the star of today's show. So these are just all the dungeons Kymar's working in. I also have him in my Doom Tower. I was running him with basically a similar team to this, and then Kymar alongside a Nuke champion, which is my Solus. But I recently changed it up to basically have Duchess, Lydia, Kymar, Seer, and Renegade. Okay? It's crazy. All right, so we have Reset from Kymar, Reset from Renegade, and we basically have Seer Nuke available every single wave. Now, my Renegade is my slowest champion on the team. She's not really geared much at all. So Kymar resets at the beginning, and then Renegade's able to reset at the end. I could maybe speed her up, see how that worked, but currently as it stands, it works out pretty good as it is. Now, this is about, I guess, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. The fastest? No, it's not the fastest run, definitely. But for Fire Knight 25, definitely not a bad time. I could speed this up if I changed some of the gear on the champions, got them really optimized. I do think Kreela may be better in here if I get Allure faster, because Kreela brings her buff and her ally attack separately, which does bring some benefits. But with Farrakhan, I really like how it's very consistent with Allure, and this run doesn't really have any areas where I'm super nervous about it. But that is my Fire Knight run, and then we just completed a mission. Sweet. Not like we're going to be finishing those anytime soon with a friggin' Gomlock Skyhide thing. Now, with Spiders, I'm doing Spider stage 20 because I haven't built a team with 25 with Kymar yet. But on stage 20, what I'm doing with him is I have him in a team with Lydia, 2 Cold Hearts, and a Royal Guard. All right. Now, this team, let me see if I have these presets done, because Royal Guard was being weird yesterday, I think, and he wasn't doing the right ability. But everything's set up good, and it looks like it should work fine. The reason why I have Kymar in here, though, is I could build a team that does this really fast. I have a Septimus. He's not built, though. I could build a team. Maybe I could even drop Kymar, throw another Cold Heart, something like that, and they go through the boss pretty good. This situation, I could even build up my Cold Heart and my Royal Guard to probably get through the Spider by themselves. The reason why I don't is because Cold Hearts are less valuable with super high crit damage later on stages, because the enemy max HP, the damage being dealt is reduced by the recent patch that came out. So the Cold Hearts, I leave them to do decent damage. I don't take my best Savage gear. I don't gear them on my best stuff. And Kymar's here, and he allows them to be reset. So 1, if Lydia misses a decreased defense or weaken, she has another chance to place it. And for 2, the Cold Hearts have a second time to go. I mean, 2 Heartseekers plus 1 of his takedowns, 1 of Royal Guard's takedowns, is enough to be pretty secure in killing the Spider every time, okay? So this team, as far as I'm aware, 100% consistent. If we miss it the first go around, we have another chance. The chances of Lydia missing her decreased defense and weaken twice, very, very low. And honestly, even if she does, the Cold Hearts and Royal Guards may be able to do some work. Now, they're not going to be able to kill it with no decrease in defense, no decreased defense and weaken, but this team seems to be pretty solid. Kymar working great. Can you use Renegade? Maybe. She has a 2-turn cooldown reduction. This is 4-turn, so you may need some survivability, but you could probably fit Renegade in here somewhere, I believe. So the benefit of having Cold Hearts using their A2 ability first is so incredible. It helps out so much. So let me see real quick what Renegade is. Like I was mentioning, though, a lot of these teams, just with some tweaks, you could get Renegade to work, and she may even work better. Decreases the cooldown of all ally skills by 2 turns. Does not affect champions with similar skills, basically. So you could get her to work for sure. You could get these champions tuned and adjusted, so maybe make them faster. That should be perfectly fine. Probably get them to like 200 speed or close to it, so they go twice before the Spider goes, and then Renegade resets. They do the Heartseeker the first turn. Renegade resets, 2 turns reduced, and then they'll be pretty close to doing a Heartseeker before anything bad happens. You may need a little bit more survivability, but it could definitely work. So that is all the areas I'm currently using Kymar in. So let's see. I haven't done any of the potion keeps yet. Will I use them in the potion keeps? Probably so. But I use them in Dragons, Spider, and Fire Knight. I will be using them in Ice Golem. I just haven't built a team that I'm happy with yet. I use him in the arena. I will be using him in Faction Wars. I use him not in the clan boss. Don't need to use him in the clan boss. Not yet. Maybe I should. Maybe I should think of a way. Use him in the Doom Tower. So one champion has came into my account and literally found a spot in every single one of my teams, which is pretty crazy. And honestly, all my teams have such little variation between them. It also is pretty crazy. So guys, if you pulled Kymar and you haven't yet built him, what are you waiting for? And if you've already built your Kymar, where are you using him? Have you found an area where it's perfectly your favorite area? What's going on with it? Let me go ahead and do a weapon with speed. Watch it be anything but a weapon, probably rare and 5-star. It's a weapon. It is a weapon. It is a rare and it's also 5-star. So I was pretty close on that. For some reason, my Swift Parry never any good when I forge it, but my perception gear is always very, very good, honestly. I have a lot of pieces in perception, and Guardian set is actually a set that I've gotten super lucky on, which speaking of, I need to get to farming the Griffin because I want some more of the Guardian gear. I'll show you guys my best champion with Guardian gear right here. Ursuga. She needs more HP, resistance, and defense. Looking pretty decent, but maybe HP could probably be boosted up a little bit. I like to see that closer to like 95,000, but either way, she's a pretty tanky chick, all right? So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about it down in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.